Thanks, JR. Welcome back to Daytona. Suddenly, it's dusk. And Sprint Unlimited final practice begins under the lights. That's the way they'll run here tomorrow night on Fox for the first wheel-to-wheel test of 2016. Jamie McMurray, first car on track for this second session.
Looks like single car runs. Everybody's kind of waiting for a gap here. I don't see them grouping up yet.
See a small group building there on pit road, and they seem to be lining up. So I think you'll see some single car runs, some groups get out there. I was surprised. I thought that the way Jamie was sitting on pit road, he was waiting for this group to form, but there he goes.
So, Darrell, as day turns tonight, what happens to your field of vision and your depth perception?
It was always for me. You practice in the daytime, so everything around the racetrack is, you can see the grandstand, you can see out, you just see everything. When it gets night, when the lights come on, it becomes very. You become very focused, and the track actually looks bigger to me because all the light is right on the racetrack. So the track actually looks like you turn the contrast way up on your television set, and it gets real bright around the racetrack.
Now, something I'm noticing here, these look like qualifying runs to me, and these teams don't get a chance to test. Mike, you brought it up earlier about not getting a chance to test over the off season. And so I'm not, even though these are not the same cars they're going to be running in the Daytona 500, but Daytona 500 qualifying is extremely important. And it looks to me like they're taking this opportunity to make some qualifying runs.
Oh, you're right, Jeff, right down against the double yellow line. All right, we've got some lingering stories to pick up on from the first practice session and more. Let's begin with Vince Welch.
Well, Mike, nobody's beating their chest after winning practice, especially at a plate track. When you finish P1 at a plate track, well, you've got the draft. That helped you out a lot. Certainly that was the case for Kyle Larson in this 42 that finished session number 1 atop the board. But when you've got a new crew chief and a lot of new team members, winning any session is important. And the 42 had some smiles on their face after that first session, but they were definitely not satisfied. Looking for some single car runs in this second session, looking for that elusive speed that they just didn't feel like they had enough of. Let's go to Chris Neville.
Well, Vince, Brad Keselowski happy with his car, pretty much middle of the pack that entire first practice. He said we did some single car runs. We also did some pack runs. But one thing Jeff Gordon picked up on, about halfway through that session, Brad Keselowski coming to pit lane very slow and weaving back and forth. And I checked in with his crew chief, Paul Wolf, about that. And he said that had nothing to do with the Sprint Unlimited. That had everything to do with qualifying for the Daytona 500 on Sunday. What Brad's trying to do there is slow the car down without touching the brake pedal. Since we are single car qualifying on Sunday, and since we've got 2 rounds, the last thing he wants to do is get those brake pads up against those rotors and create drag in this race car for round 2.
So just to follow up on that, the reason why you would do that is because it's 3 rounds of qualifying. We used to always do that when it was single car runs and it was just one group or one run out there on the track. But now, now that it's 2 group qualifying here, you need to still keep those brake pads pushed back for that second run because there's a lot of friction that's built up in those pads touching those rotors. So if you can get to pit road without pushing the brake pedal, and you're going to, obviously it's not easy to do, and you got to be rolling slow, and there's a lot of different techniques to do it. Obviously when you shut off, a lot of it is that transmission, using that transmission and how to slow the car down, as well as now I understand why he was weaving back and forth, because he's just trying to create as much friction to slow the car down without touching the brakes.
Yeah, buffing off speed.
Well, here's your pack. Forming up.
Go. What do we have? 1, 2, 3, what, 8, 7 cars?
Yep.
Yeah, 7 or 8. Yeah.
7 cars is not. I know a lot of these drivers are thinking right now that boy, we'd like to have 10 or 12. If we're going to go out there in a pack, you really want to be in as good conditions as you possibly can to learn as much as possible. They're going to take what they can get. I think they waited about as long as they could on pit road without killing too much more time in this session. And so now they're going to roll out there and take 7 or 8 cars, and maybe a couple more will fall in there and get a good read on it.
A beautiful sunset here in Daytona. Sun just about dipped below the horizon. 7 cars in a pack. That was the entire starting field when this race was first run as the Busch Clash in 1979.
Yep. Buddy Baker won it. I run second. We almost lapped the other cars. That's how he was driving the Gray Ghost at the time. And if you could just hang on to him, you were going to go for a good ride. And he and I got hooked up, and we left everybody. And I was begging him to let me lead a lap. Just let me lead a lap. And he slowed down enough that I got a nose in from him, and he went right back, and I just would follow him to the line.
How many laps was that race back then, Daryl?
20. Yeah, it wasn't very long.
I remember
quick sprint.
My first was the Busch Clash, I guess, back then. It was a very short race. It was a sprint race, and you didn't think you could get from the back to the front, but then you watched Dale Earnhardt do it many times and made it look easy, and that was such an exciting, fun race.
Yeah, you know, you were talking about that 7 cars. I always wonder why, like, you had 3 teammates, you know, the Stewart-Haas or 4. Why the guys didn't go out with people that they knew and people they could trust and not get a bunch of, you know, monkey motion going on with people out there that you really don't want to be with.
I think ultimately they would like to do that, but again, everybody's on a slightly different agenda. We saw Jimmy Johnson, Shaq Knopf making single-car runs. We saw, you know, a couple other teams looking like they're making qualifying runs, preparing for tomorrow, gathering information anyway. But just as we say that, there's 3 Stewart-Haas cars right there together.
Danica Patrick, the 10, Brian Vickers, the 14, and new colors for Kevin Harvick on his number 4.
And
that 11 car looks like he's going somewhere, man. He jumped to the outside of all these guys and gals and moving.
Now that's a suck-up lap as Denny Hamlin caught the pack, and he goes straight to the top of the board and the top of the track.
You know, Denny is very aggressive when it comes to drafting. He's been very successful because of his aggressiveness, and he knows how to get momentum and maintain that momentum, and it's really paid off for him on these races. I expect for him to be a major threat in this race tomorrow night in the Daytona 500.
I expect he will be too if he's going to drive by everybody like that.
Yeah, he made that look easy.
He's just going by him on the outside.
I hope the competitors are watching this right now. Now let's not forget also the 15 car there with Clint Boyer. That's basic. They're connected to Stewart-Haas Racing with Harry Scott, and of course Clint Boyer is going to be going to that team in 2017. So you'll see them working together an awful lot.
And most likely that 15 car that Boyer's driving, I bet that's a car he drove last year, because they bought from Michael and them. I think they bought like 15 or 20 cars from MWR, and a lot of the cars are down here.
I just watched the 11 car pull to the inside of the 3 and make a pass all by himself. Now he's getting ready to go by the 27. That thing is flying.
We got your mirror 3 back.
I think I just bring her on in the garage if I'm running that good. I just don't want. I wouldn't want to wear it out.
Denny Hamlin is bad fast as he pulls up on the 27 of Paul Menard.
So Hamlin has run 198.9 miles per hour in this practice, and the next one is 194 miles per hour.
I mean, but he passes at will. I mean, he just catches them and passes them.
And you know, a lot of that is he got at the back of the pack, and he obviously they've had fast race cars down here before. He obviously has another fast race car because of the moves he's making, but he also had the benefit of a 7 or 8 car draft ahead of him that he was basically sucking up to.
Well, he's mowing them down. Wow.
You know, guys, I know Toyota, they're looking for their first Daytona 500 win, but when you think about the Joe Gibbs Toyota drivers, they have won 3 out of the last 4 Sprint Unlimited races with 3 different teams and drivers.
Yeah, Matt Kenseth won this race last year. Denny has always had a car that could win the Daytona 500. I think if he hadn't had radio problems during the race last year, he might have had a shot at winning the thing.
Now Hamlin's dead even with Paul Menard right now. If he completes that pass, he'll be right at the head of the pack with Almirola and Kurt Busch. Or it was Kurt Busch, not anymore.
Well, I think they came up on Kurt Busch. He was sort of blending in. The 43 cars doing similar to what I was looking at earlier, where you've got 2 options here. You can be the leader and try to go from one lane to the other lane to see what it takes to lead a race and maintain the lead. And then you've got the guys behind them and gal that are sitting there trying to figure out, you know, what can I do to get momentum, get that push from behind, and go past that leader.
Boy, that 11 car, though, he can go anywhere, Jeff. That's one thing. He went on the outside of a bunch of cars. He's dropped to the inside here on Menard, and he's doing a lot of it all by himself. You can see there he doesn't have any help because he's losing a little ground here now.
I think he waved off right there, so they knew to go by him. But, yeah, you know, I always look at which lane is more organized. When I'm talking to my spotter and we're prepping for this type of race, we talk a lot about tell me which line has the most cars, the most tightly packed cars, and is the most organized, because that line of cars is going to give you the most momentum and keep you going forward. And as soon as that changes and shifts, that lane is getting ready to stall out.
Now, your spotter, Eddie DeHaan, what's Eddie going to do this year?
Yeah, Eddie's with Chase Elliott, and he's going to be Chase's spotter, great spotter, and Eddie DeHaan. I had a great time working with him. Actually met with the team, the 24 team, to give them a little insight on the things that I worked with Eddie for the Daytona 500.
I always like when a spotter would say, you've got to push. Your line is moving, you got to push from behind, and you knew that was a good line to be in.
Oh, yeah, I love it when they say, help's coming, help's on their way.
You got it.
There they are, up on the roof of the tower at the start-finish line of Daytona International Speedway, helping their drivers. We will call it for you from the 5th floor of the new tower here at Daytona, right under the World Center of Racing. Jeff, Darrell, Mike.
Wait, Mike, wait.
To my left, the Stat Boys, Bert and Ernie. Our stage manager, Andy, always in his Cubs shirt. Cameraman, Steve. Our A2, our audio expert, Barb. Everybody.
This is where the magic happens up here. That's what I'm starting to find out.
We make TV up here. And you remember, you always have to have your TV worksheet. Remember that.
Absolutely. I'll tell you, that tour we took yesterday of this place when we first got here was absolutely amazing.
It's all been redone. Folks, you won't even reckon it. The chicken bone seats are gone down by the fence. You can't even get down by the fence.
But you can bring some chicken bones.
Yes. A lot of new suites and some really unique concession stands. Stop by the Fox Sports bar and say hello to Cletus. He's about 40 feet high standing up there.
I think what they've created here, of course, this is the Great American Race, the history, the prestige of this race. It just went to a whole nother level as a fan experience by what they've built here on all levels, from the grandstands to the suites to us here in the TV booth. But I think now they've not only stepped it up here at Daytona, now we're going to start to see that go to other racetracks and become more stadium-like at other tracks and continue that fan experience.
And very important, because you are allowed to bring your own cooler.
Oh, yeah.
Double the restrooms.
Here's the thing that I like. It used to be an entrance. Now it's an injector. You know, everything has an updated name for whatever it is they're doing. The suite areas, the place where the fans can all come together and watch.
Yes, you can come hard. Clear by straight away.
All right, that's Danica Patrick. Let's go down to the garage. And Vince.
And with Casey Mears, who'll be making his 5th start in the Sprint Unlimited, all done for the night. What'd you get out of that first practice session?
A lot, really, you know, and obviously it's going to be a little bit cooler now and there's going to be more grit, but ultimately if it works in the day, it's going to work better at the night. So our car worked really well. I was happy with the Geico Chevrolet. The biggest thing that we really worked through in that practice was just coming to pit road a lot, working through, you know, different ways of going about the dash, you know, what I could see, what I couldn't see, and what we needed to move. So we played a lot with that and did a lot of runs. Ran it out of fuel one time just to kind of see how that went. But really the car handles well, and I'm looking forward to the race tomorrow night.
Thanks, Casey. Mike?
Thanks, Vince. We talked a little bit about past radio problems for Denny Hamlin. Perhaps past is also present. We listened in when Denny was out making laps.
Really bad. I'm a little concerned about the radios. I am not going to be able to hear him during the race, so we got to work on that a little bit. You had the same issue with him? Yes, 10-4, especially at speed. I could hear static as well. It's not just engine noise, there's static there as well.
And he had a problem all during the race, I think it was last year, that really hindered him because he couldn't hear his spotter, and he was kind of out there in no man's land by himself, and it really hurt him right up to the end of the race.
Radio communication is so crucial, so important, especially at this race with the amount that you're talking back and forth with your team, with your spotter. But if there's any little static or noise in your radio, I know it used to just drive me crazy, and it really took my focus off of doing a better job on the racetrack.
I tell you one thing, that Jimmy Johnson, he's holding a pretty wheel right now, though. Man, he's smooth through the corner.
Denny Hamlin fastest, Clint Boyer second, as we get ready for the first checkered flag of Speed Weeks tomorrow night. Beautiful night at the world's most famous beach, where it is 66 degrees. All of you up and down the East Coast, sorry. 55 degrees for tomorrow night's Sprint Unlimited. The first checkered flag test of this speed week. So much is new. Of course, here at Fox, Jeff Gordon is what is new. Just kind of give us an idea of what you're looking forward to tomorrow night.
Well, this is always an incredibly intense and exciting race. Even though there's no points on the line, this is an opportunity to win a race. And these guys, and Danica, the girl in the field, they're just competitors. They want to be out there to win, and they want to learn something for the Daytona 500. The crew chiefs want to learn, and we've always seen fireworks in this event.
Yes. But, Darrell, this race has not been a great predictor. Not since 2000 has the winner of the Unlimited gone on to win the 500 in the same year.
I always think about Dale Earnhardt Sr. I mean, he could win I think he won this thing like 9 times. I mean, he'd win the 150s, you know, and he'd win he went on Saturday. But Sunday always eluded him. And there's just something about, sometimes I think you use up all your luck in these early events, in these preliminary events. But let me tell you, from what I've seen in practice tonight, watching Denny Hamlin, a couple of Dale Jr., they got to be odds-on favorites for the whole week to win the pole, to win the race, because those cars are really fast, and you got to have a fast car to win down here.
Absolutely. Now, here at Daytona, there are special rules, and one involves that very wide double yellow line. That is definitely a no passing zone. You cannot move down there and advance your position, as happened in 2011. Denny Hamlin battling. Had he held his line right there, he would have won. But Hamlin, without being forced below the yellow line, dropped down below it. And although he was first to the flag, he did not get the win. Now, for more on the double yellow line and a new rule this year, Larry McReynolds.
Yeah, Mike, if you go back to last year, it was kind of up in the air what was going on with the green-white checkered, especially at the restrictor plate tracks like Daytona and Talladega. So what NASCAR is doing this year at all racetracks, starting here this weekend for Speed Weeks, we've essentially done away with the green-white checkered. If we're going to go into overtime, they've put a line here at Daytona. It's on the backstretch. And when the leader takes the green for overtime, if he goes by that line on the backstretch, the overtime line, and the caution comes out, it is an official race. If the leader does not get to that line on the first lap, we're going to go back and do it again. And you know what? It's unlimited attempts at that overtime.
So the overtime line is used by NASCAR to determine whether or not there has been a clean restart. If that caution doesn't wave by the time you get around there, then the next flag would end the race.
It appears to me that line lines up with the start-finish line. If you drew a line across the Lake Lloyd out there over to the back straightaway, I think it pretty much lines up with the start-finish line, which makes sense to me.
And this is a direct response of what happened at Talladega last year. I think that kind of threw everybody off when the caution came out. Was it a start? Was it not a start? They went to one green-white checkered. A lot of the drivers really don't want to see multiple green-white checkers, but I think they compromise by knowing it's not going to be official until you get to that back straightaway line. But if you get to that line, it is.
Yeah, every driver knows if there's enough green-white checkers, you're going to wreck the whole field. I mean, it happens time and time again.
Who's going to win? Pace car's got a good shot at it.
That's right.
Chris Neville.
Well, Mike, Kyle Busch happy with his race car. He did 2 runs in very small packs out there, currently 16th quick, and the team now changing the car over, wanting to do some single car runs. So they've been making some changes to the back end of the car, and I talked to Adam Stevens, his crew chief, and said, what was the biggest thing you wanted to do in this practice? He said it was actually the digital dashboard, so that new dashboard that all these teams have. He said the biggest issue in practice 1 is Kyle was having a difficult time trying to see what his pit lane speed was and keeping it within that pit lane speed parameter. So they made a whole bunch of changes there. So not only tuning on these race cars, also tuning on these new electronics.
Thanks, Chris. In session 2, Denny Hamlin so far is fastest at 198.9 miles per hour. The fastest sport in the world is now on FS1. Be here when the green light flashes on the 2016 season with the Pomona Finals beginning Sunday. 5 Eastern only on FS1 and streaming live on Fox Sports Go. We welcome the NHRA to Fox.
Tell you, I like watching those cars drag race. They're a lot of fun. Old buddy John Force, everybody knows him. And
I saw John when I was out at Barrett Jackson.
Yeah.
He hasn't changed. I mean, he loves life and has a great time and loves drag racing.
Got his whole family involved, too.
Yeah, he does.
You hear this car of Kurt Busch's? Running wide open. That's John Force all the time.
Yeah.
On and off the track.
That's right.
He can entertain you, I'll tell you that.
I actually went to the track there in Charlotte that Bruton Smith built. Having 4 top fuel dragsters hit that green light at one time, it was mind-boggling the way that your body absorbs that energy. It's crazy.
Yep. You think your heart's going to leap out of your chest when they light off there at ZMAX Dragway.
It's probably
right.
40,000 horsepower all at once.
Yeah, you're right.
Let's get some updates from the garage. Vince.
Well, we talked a lot about the digital dash over the course of this practice day, but it's not the only bit of technology that the drivers have. Ricky Stenhouse, you can see keeping an eye on this timing and scoring screen while the crew is working on the car. Ricky, what are you looking at there? Maybe take us through the things that the information you're trying to glean from this screen.
Well, first off, I had to get it reset up from last year. I had it all set up where I wanted, and I opened it back up today, and it was a little bit different. But I've got each team highlighted in different colors and kind of group them all together. Right now, I'm just looking at the cars that are doing single car runs, just trying to see what kind of lap times they're running by themselves, because that's all we did. We didn't do any drafting. So, once we get to a place like Atlanta, Las Vegas, Phoenix, we'll actually look at the average of what guys are doing and what cars are going over the longer run. So we can see an average of everybody's lap times versus ours. So, if I feel like I might not have a good car at the beginning of a run, I might look over here and say, well, it's pretty good on the long run. So us drivers always want to see what's going on and try to pay attention. And this helps us pay attention without asking the crew chief.
Interesting stuff, guys. A lot of information at the fingertips of these drivers, and they never stop looking for more.
Yeah, he's also got a fan vision screen right above that, so he can keep track of what's going on out on the speedway while he's here in the garage. Data and video.
That was his code for saying, I'm sitting here in the car, I have nothing else to do but look at this screen and try to come up with something fun.
That's it. Lean into the shot. Get that Fastenal on the shot there. There you go. Yeah. Well done. Well done. Chris.
Well, and Joey Logano having some fun in this practice, too. Joey Logano currently 10th on the board. And, Joey, in practice 1, I heard you on the radio say you were so impressed by the 88, what Dale Jr. was able to do on the racetrack. What were you so impressed with?
I'm not really surprised, that's for sure. As Earnhardt's fast at Daytona, it's a big surprise for everyone. But I just think, obviously, Dale's really good at speedway racing and drafting, and you always study and watch what he does, right? But I thought just the way he was able to pass cars and get up and get really close to someone's bumper and pull out and pass them, I thought that was really impressive what he can do. So we're working on our shell pencil forward a little bit to get a little bit more speed out of it. I feel like we were pretty good. I feel like we can lead a pack really good, which is nice. I feel like we're not far off where we need to be, but it seemed like there's one shining car out there that we need to catch.
Thanks, Joey.
Look at that smile. That has not left his face since last year's Daytona 500. Defending champ Joey Logano. Practice rolls on for the Sprint Unlimited. We're about halfway there.
Yeah, that's weird.
Hey, want to win the Daytona 500? Well, you can't. However, you can get almost the same paycheck as the driver who does. $1.5 million. All you have to do, sounds easy, right? Pick the top 10 finishers of the 500 in order. Visit foxsports.com/Daytona. Pick 10 before race day on February 21st to enter. foxsports.com/Daytona. Pick 10.
All right.
$1.5 million.
A challenge. We're going to pick our 10.
You want to pick 10? I'd like to pick 10.
Not right now. Not right now, but we're going to pick our 10, and we're going to see how close we get.
I like that. I usually when I do things like that, and I look at fantasy racing and all those things, and you think you know what you're doing, all of a sudden you find you really have no clue, and it's very easy to predict.
Last year, trying to pick the final 4, I was out the first week.
And you're not allowed to pick yourself.
not anymore. This year.
Not anymore. I think everybody is going to have this number.
He's my pick.
In their pick 10.
Well, I tell you what I like is the lap time that he run a 46.9. That's by himself, and I think Jeff noticed, and I did too, that's about the fastest single car lap that we've seen.
Yeah, I think we saw Joey Logano do a single car run and ran a 47.0. So that's about a tenth faster than that. Of course, sometimes you don't know what lap they're on, the first lap or the second lap. But yeah, that's getting after it.
Hey, Daryl, remember we used to name our cars.
Yeah.
And I think teams had gotten away from that because you build them so rapidly. But they nicknamed this car of Dale Earnhardt Jr. Amelia. It had 3 wins total last year. It won the Budweiser Dual Race here in February. It won Talladega in May, and it won here in July at Daytona. In fact, if you look at his average finish at the 4 points races last year in restrictor plates, 1.75.
So
that is impressive.
Who's Amelia?
It must be the island.
Amelia Earhart.
Yeah.
Oh, well, of course.
I think they quit naming them, Larry, when I called one hemorrhoid. I believe it went down. I think it all went.
But there was Wilma.
Well, there was Wilma. Will she make it or will she not?
You have no idea how difficult that is to pull off. I mean,
look at that record right there.
3/4 of the drivers that are out there are just trying to figure out how to finish a restrictor plate race.
Right. That is impressive.
Well, I think that's kind of a lot of ways Dale Jr. reminds me of his dad. I mean, they love Daytona and Talladega. And I'll never forget Jr. said, "I just want to add to that legacy." Well, he's doing a great job of that, but I don't know what an Earnhardt. I always said Dale could see the air.
Right.
Well, you know, like I do, you can't see the air, but you can sure feel it. And I think that's something that's kind of inherent in an Earnhardt. They can just feel the air, and they can feel it do things a little bit more than maybe other drivers can.
I would love to know if his dad sat down with him at some point and talked about restrictor plate racing, because his dad was so good. I remember I had to watch him and try to learn what he was doing, and there was, I'm sure, a lot of things that he was doing that I never learned. But Dale Jr. May have had that opportunity, but just like his dad, he just knows how to take momentum and keep the momentum. Of course, they've got great race cars at Hendrick Motorsports, but he seems to be able to just take and make a little bit more what I call energy and maintain it.
So in 2015, his average finish for the 4 plate races, 1.75, same as he did in 2004, but he doesn't have the record. 1999, his dad's average over 4 races, 1.5.
Wow.
0.5. Well, if you think about, you talk about Dale Sr. and what he taught, think about what he did with my brother. He helped my brother at Daytona and Talladega, what he's done for Dale Jr. They know something, but they never have told anybody what it is.
I wouldn't either.
They've been racing on or near the world's most famous beach for about 120 years now. Ever since there were 2 cars parked side by side, we've been racing up and down the sands. And then here since 1959 on this 2.5-mile tri-oval that was the dream of Big Bill France.
And this place has never disappointed. You think about the very first race. They come across the start-finish line 3 wide. And it took, what, 3 days to figure out who in the heck won the thing. And we have that going on right now every year.
You know what I always wonder when I think of special moments like that, what is it that creates that? Is it the passion, the desire of those competitors, or is it the design of the racetrack that just brings all of that together to make something like that happen?
What I've been told by people who were here in 1959 and drivers who raced here in the first few years, that they drove through that tunnel in turn 4 and realized they were somewhere they'd never been. They'd never seen a high bank super speedway. They'd never seen a 2.5-mile racetrack. Some of them have never seen a paved racetrack. And here it was, gleaming and ready for drivers to go as fast as they possibly could. And that was so different from everywhere else that this became the place, this became the race, and NASCAR became the only major sport to begin its season with its biggest and signature event.
Well, that was what I was going to say. You have to give Bill France was such a visionary. When are these race teams at their best? With their equipment, financially, everything that you want in a race team. When are you at your best? When the season starts. You come down here, we used to come down here and spend a month. I mean, they'd run and run and run and run and change motors and work on those cars. But people had money to come to Daytona. People came here because it was cold up north. They wanted to go down south. And then this racetrack was magical. Like Mike said, this place, can you imagine running around here with a guardrail that wasn't probably, what, 5 or 6 feet tall?
And here's the best one. On qualifying day, the timing people would sit in the grassy tri-oval in a car about 8 feet back of the racetrack, and up at the entrance to pit road would be a line of hay bales behind which would be photographers.
And the flagman, Mike,
yeah,
the flagman would stand down on the infield.
They'd be right there. That's where the photographers would be, and here's where the car would be with the people with the timing equipment and a wire right there to the start-finish line.
And then the flagman, when he started the race, he'd be right here. He'd be right down there on the apron.
Yeah, they had far too much faith in equipment back in those days.
Well, much has changed, even since last year, since Kyle Busch's difficult accident when he went straight in right about here. You notice that glowing yellow area down toward turn 1. That's all new pavement where previously there was grass, and around the inside of the track it is now ringed with safer barrier and augmented in a few areas by tire packs, and you see all that area of brand new asphalt, so a car would not be sliding through the grass and be able to get to that.
Well, that's been the worst thing about some of these racetracks is the grass. I mean, when a car gets off of the racing surface into the grass, you're out of control, and it picks up speed. And so Daytona, they've learned through the years. I mean, every time something bad happens, they react to it. They put up the safer barrier where Kyle hit. They paved down the back straightaway where everybody was getting off in the grass and rolling over. They fixed the turn 4 wall down here where we come off and slam into a dirt bank. They have continually improved this racetrack.
You see Kyle Busch gets turned.
Look how fast.
Basically have no control at this time. Then you hit that grass. You can't slow down, head on into that wall that also did not have a safer barrier on it. Huge impact. And I give Daytona Speedway a tremendous amount of credit for this. This all happened with, they were already planning Daytona Rising and the budgets and all those things. They went over the top for safety to make sure that this can't happen again, and they changed the angles of the walls, added safer barrier all around. You see some tire walls here. They have done a tremendous job, again, setting the standard, not just with a stadium, but a racetrack.
Safety is a moving target. You'll never, ever find all the areas a car can hit, right?
That's right.
Tonight on FS1, Untold Stories from Daytona is next. And then you'll see the 1993 Daytona 500 on Race Classic at 8:30. I didn't know that race only lasted half an hour, but it will. Beyond the Wheel, short film special, airs at 9. Those are Eastern times. Vince?
With Danica Patrick, new contract, new sponsor, new crew chief, a lot of new things going on. Were you able to glean any new information out there during these 2 practice sessions today?
Well, we have that new dash, so just trying to get used to that. And you know, there's different pages on it. You can customize it however you want. It's like going to breakfast in America. You're like, how do you want your eggs? How do you want your hash browns? How do you want your... That's how our dashes are. They're very customizable. So I was just going through and trying pit stops with the primary page, trying pit stops with the pit road page, if you know, so in case I forgot, I have knowledge of both. Shifting, the lights are different. So I was just kind of running through that stuff and working with my brake bias for pit in, and yeah, I think in the draft we seemed pretty good in the second practice. Yeah, nothing really to complain about. I mean, everything feels pretty good, and I feel like it looks pretty good too.
It does indeed. I like the blue. Well done. Good choice, Mike.
This will be her 22nd Daytona start in a stock car.
Talk about their different pages. You think about all the new cars. I mean, they've got the big video screen right in the middle of the dash, and on every page, there's every function you want your car to do, whether it's lane avoidance or stall at the engine stall at a stoplight. You know, all those things can be operated.
Yep. Tesla and
operated
Audi leading the way
from a touchscreen.
Yep.
Yeah, and basically there's just so many different configurations, and what I like something she alluded to is a pit stop page. So what some are thinking is to make it even simpler and easier when you come to pit road, you just flip to that page. And I'd like to know if that switch is on the steering wheel. I believe it is. You flip to that next page, and then what happens is it gives you way more information, or at least a better visual to maintain that pit road speed and get to it.
Now Jimmy's opted for a bar graph type display there on his dash.
Yeah,
for this run. Now, one thing that is not part of the digital dash, folks, and unless you drive a Porsche, it's the biggest gauge on your dashboard. Speedometer. We still have no speedometers in these cars, and they're kind of irrelevant. A driver determines his pit road speed by his tachometer. So no speedos, no need.
I did hear that they're going to allow the drivers to have lap times, which here at Daytona and Talladega, it's great for qualifying in the race. It's not crucial, but all the other tracks, that is going to be a huge tool to have every single lap.
Yeah, it's almost entertaining. It's almost fun to be able to, I ran a better lap that time. I ran a different line that time. I picked up when I did this, when I did that. It could be very fun. Head up 4.
4 minutes to go in Sprint Unlimited final practice. That lap at Denny Hamlin's was one where he sucked up to a big pack and blew right on by about half of them. And that's why he's so much quicker than the rest of the field. Let's join Vince Welch.
And with A.J. Allmendinger, just kind of talking about the dash, which everybody seems to be discussing down here, but also what you try to get out of these 2 practice sessions here tonight.
We did a draft and run to begin with, and I thought the car was pretty stable. Overall, got a new crew chief this year, Randall Burnett. So for us just to get on the radio, kind of talk to each other a little bit, get used to that. Did some single car runs for Daytona 500 qualifying, even though it'll be a different car. Just kind of had a checklist we wanted to run through. But other than that, just to get back in the swing of things and figure out how to drive one of these Sprint Cup cars again. But all in all, I thought it was a great day. We got Kroger on board, but it's really cool. We got some new partners with Kroger, Stouffer's, and Lean Cuisine, so it's nice to get them on the racetrack for the first time. But overall, solid day, and we'll got some fun tomorrow night.
Good to hear it. A.J. Allmendinger. Let's go to Chris Neville.
Well, earlier I told you about Kyle Busch making some changes to his digital dash. His teammate over at Joe Gibbs Racing, Carl Edwards, you were also having some issues here, and I was watching you guys go through those changes. One of your engineers plugged in a laptop. Very easy to change things. From sitting inside the car, did you get everything the way you wanted it?
I think, I have to get used to it. I didn't realize how ingrained the needle and the dial was, but I realized about halfway through the practice I wasn't even looking at the scale, the RPM underneath, so I was just paying attention to the lights and everything. Fortunately, it's a 2.5-mile racetrack, so you got some time to look around, but it is taking some getting used to it. Kenny Oates, our engineer, he was able to real time, I'd come in and he could change anything we wanted, so really a lot of fun to mess around with.
Like a big video game.
Yeah.
In many cases.
And I think what we're hearing out of all these drivers is we're just playing around with it right now, seeing what it can do, what the options are. Here's Jamie Mack trying to get on pit road.
This is a crucial part of this race, not just for the Unlimited, but also next week in the duel in the Daytona 500. He's coming into his actual pit box here. Every track, the surface, the concrete, the tire, depend on the compound, the grip level is different. It's really important to check to see where you have to start slowing down to maximize.
One of the things about these pit boxes, remember they ran the 24-hour race here 2 weeks ago, and so that pit lane and those pit boxes, they are full of what was left over from the 24-hour race. That makes that pit box very difficult, slick, hard to stop in, hard to get out of.
And I only ran one 24-hour race here, but I can tell you there's a lot of things that go on pit road with changing brake fluid, adding oil, fuel. So there is so much that is dumped on that pit road.
Exactly.
Now those eyes in the sky are the cameras for the pit road officiating system. Many infractions that used to be called by a NASCAR inspector standing out on pit road are now called very objectively by this system. And a year ago, there were a lot of skeptics. You could put me at the top of that list. How can this possibly work every time and work without failure? And my goodness, it has more than succeeded. By about race 3, you didn't hear a word about it from anybody.
And that's kind of what this digital dash reminds me of. Think about a few years ago we came down here and fuel injection. Oh my God, they can't make fuel injection work on these cars. And after a couple of races, I don't think we ever mentioned it again. Then we came down here with the Hawkeye system. Well, that'll never work. And after a couple of races, we never mentioned it again. And I think the same way with the dash, once these guys get familiar with it, we probably won't ever mention it again.
Yeah, and our very own Larry Mack went to school on that today
Yeah.
to get us all up to speed on what goes on there throughout a race.
Well, Dale Jr. got up to speed, but then the caution lights came on because it is the end of the session. We'll be right back to wrap things up from 2 rounds of practice for tomorrow night's Sprint Unlimited on Fox. Practice 2 led by Denny Hamlin. Practice 1 paced by Kyle Larson, who had the fastest lap of the day. Here's a look down the lineup, 25 cars strong for final practice. And right in the middle of that field is Casey Kane with Vince.
He's 13th on the board and ran about as many laps, if not more, than just about everybody else. What were you looking for in that session?
We were just trying different adjustments in the front to see if we could gain a little bit more speed, how it would drive, the roughness and things. But felt good with our great Clip Chevrolet. The first practice when we were in the draft, it was much different. Then the second one, obviously, running by ourselves. But the teams work hard for the Unlimited. We also worked real hard on the 500 car, the Farmers Insurance car. So see what happens. We should have some good pieces.
Thanks, Casey. Mike?
Thank you, Vince. 3 things you need to know from final practice for tomorrow night's Sprint Unlimited on Fox. Denny Hamlin was the only driver in the top 3 in both practice sessions. Kevin Harvick had the most laps run in his number 4 and the best 10 consecutive laps. While Stewart-Haas Racing put all 4 of their cars in the fastest 7 for this session.
You know, Danica Patrick, she was had the second fastest 5 consecutive laps and the third fastest 10 consecutive laps. Her car was pretty fast in those practice sessions.
Tomorrow on FS1, Daytona 500 pre-qualifying practice beginning 10:30 a.m. and tomorrow night on Fox, the Sprint Unlimited. Stay tuned for untold stories from Daytona.